Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and when people ask me about the iPhone 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max, the first thing they ask me is the dynamic island worth it? And so since we've been living with it for about the past 5 months or so, I thought we'd go over some apps that make the best use of it. So whether or not you have an iPhone 14 Pro or 14 Pro Max, you can check out the apps, or maybe you're considering upgrading and still trying to decide if it's worth the upgrade. Now, we have a lot of nice built-in notifications that utilize the dynamic island, such as charging. So if we plug in a MagSafe charger, you'll see that it immediately shows us charging and then sort of shrinks away. If we press on it, it doesn't do anything, but we do often get notifications there depending on the apps we're using. There's some nice uses of it, and there's really some apps that don't take advantage of it yet. Now, the first thing that was updated today is Uber. So Uber is actually something that Apple showed off with the introduction of iOS 16 or with the iPhone 14 Pro Max, and showing that it could actually do some different activities. So they showed live activities with the introduction of iOS 16, but it also can use the dynamic island to show you when your ride is actually arriving and more. So this is something they updated the app today, and you can see what it would look like here for live activities and similarly in the dynamic island. That's something that should be rolling out to over 1,200 cities starting today. So that's something that was in testing. If you want to try it out, that's the first thing if you're looking for a ride-sharing app. The next thing that we see a lot of apps like this, one of them is Pixel Pals. So Pixel Pals puts a little pal at the top of the dynamic island, and if we swipe home, you'll see it's not activated. However, if I turn it on to always, we can have it run, sleep, or just chill at the top. So if we swipe home, we've got a little Pixel Pal in the top in the dynamic island that sits around there. If we press and hold, we can play, we can feed, and you'll see here, just give it a little ball there. It shows up on the dynamic island, and you can see it there. Now, once you swipe out of this, of course, it goes into the dynamic island and sort of just sits there. However, if you want to use that, it's available, and it was first introduced with the Apollo app, which is a Reddit app. So if you go into that, you can have a little pal at the top there. There are a lot of apps that try and duplicate this. This was the first one I was aware of, but you have a bunch of different preferences. Of course, there's subscription models with different pals as well. So it's a nice little playful thing you can have in the dynamic island if you want to. But you will have to turn it off when you don't want it to show up there on the top. Now, the next thing that's been super helpful for me, especially when I travel, is Flighty. Now, this is something that's a subscription, and they'll let you see what it does, but it allows you to track your flights and show you that in the dynamic island. I recently used this when I was traveling to CES back in January, and we'll just view a random flight so we can see what it's like. But if you're flying someplace regularly, this is super helpful. So you'll see this is just a random flight, and if we swipe home, it goes into the dynamic island. It shows the gate number in the upper right when it's departing, and then you can go right back through it. So you can go right into your information, and then when it's in flight, you can actually see the flight progressing here. So if someone is, maybe a family member is wanting to know where you are, they can actually see it in real time in the dynamic island and within a live activity on your home screen. So you'll see it there. So you've got your gate and everything. So this is one of the best uses of the dynamic island in live activities and is highly recommended. I subscribe to it when I need it, and then I unsubscribe when I don't. But if you travel regularly, to me, this is now a must-have and definitely worth checking out. Now, the next one is a game, and this is actually something that's been out a while, but we'll go into it, and it allows you to use this as sort of a game of Pong, but using the island as one of the things you hit the ball off of. So if we go into it, you'll see here, if we press play, and now we've got the little paddle at the bottom. We'll wait for it to bounce back and forth, and there's really great haptic feedback in this. And this is actually a free game, and all of these games will be linked, or all of these apps rather, will be linked in the description below. So as it bounces off the top of the dynamic island, you can actually feel this every time it bounces. So it's just a simple game if you want to try it out, and it's worth trying since it's free. Now, the next app is a weather app, and if you don't like Apple's regular weather app, and since they bought a different app and got rid of it, Carrot Weather is actually something that uses the dynamic island based on the overall weather in your area. It will actually show up when there's a rainstorm, for example. So currently there isn't one in my area, but it gives you all of your regular information. You will have to subscribe to get some of these features, but you can actually take a look at them, see what they look like. And if we go into the App Store, you'll see in their pictures from the app, you'll see not only do we get things such as live activities, we also have dynamic island weather here as well. So if it's going to rain soon, it will let you know and just pop into the dynamic island. Of course, it will be running in the background. You will need that for some of those weather alerts to work, but that's new for iOS 16.1 and later. So it's a great weather app. It is a little bit expensive at $20 per year, but if you really like looking at the weather, getting alerts, it's one of the best weather apps out there, if not the best currently available. Now, the next one is for those of you that like wallpaper. So maybe you want to make clever use of the wallpaper using the dynamic island. If we go into this, this is a free app. I'll link in the description. You can see there's a little spaceman hanging off the dynamic island. The next one, of course, we have another one with a person climbing a rope up to the dynamic island, or maybe sliding down. And then we have another one with a monkey using its tail around the dynamic island. And I think you get the idea. But again, I'll link this in the description if you want to check it out. There's a lot of clever uses of apps that use the dynamic island, especially for wallpaper. Now, the next one has to do with sports. Now, I've shown this one off before when it comes to live activities, but it also has great integration with the dynamic island. So whether you want to know about F1, NASCAR, boxing, all the way to MLB or NFL in real time based off of games that are going on, it will actually let you know not only as a live activity, but also in the dynamic island. So if we go over to the App Store, you can see here, those are the live activities, but also in the dynamic island. It's based off of what's going on in real time. So the sport has to be taking place right now, and then it will update you in the dynamic island with those sports scores. So that's something that if you track a lot of different sports may be very helpful to you. So be sure to check it out. And I know a lot of people really enjoy this app. Now, for those of you that want multiple timers at once, there's an app called Sticky Timers. Go into Sticky Timers and you'll see I've created 2 different timers. We have 5 minutes, 7 minutes, and maybe we'll create one for 1 hour. And we'll start the timer. So let's start the others just by tapping on them, swipe home, and now they're in the dynamic island. Press and hold, and you can see all of your timers in real time. So this is something that may be very useful for some of you if you want to keep timers running. However, you can pause any one of them, press and hold, and stop all of them. It's very simple, but makes a good use of the dynamic island. And what you'll see is with all the different apps I've shown, most people that make apps are doing similar apps. So Pixel Pals or Hit the Island or maybe something such as Wallpaper. You're going to see a lot of repeated apps in the App Store if you search for dynamic island. So if you go into search, you'll see here, you're going to see a lot that do similar things. So I was showing you sort of the original, or at least that I was aware of as the original, and it gives you the similar sort of setup. So if you don't like one app, there's lots to try. However, there should be more integration with this in the future. For example, Google Maps is going to be updating their maps very soon with integration into the dynamic island. So that's something we haven't seen yet. If you use Google Maps regularly, when you're getting directions somewhere, it should pop into the dynamic island. So we're going to see more and more apps use this, but it seems as though they've been very slow to implement. And so if you're wondering if you should update just because of the dynamic island from an iPhone 13 Pro or 13 Pro Max, well, those are the functions that you get with that. Like I showed before with the charging, you have some nice notifications there. If you're recording your screen, you get a nice notification there. So if we turn on screen recording, it just is a nice place for notifications. But to me, it's not something that's worth running out and buying a phone over. Most people I show think it's neat for a few minutes and then say, well, I don't know that that's worth over $1,000 worth of upgrading. So you'll see there, if we stop it, it stops. Also, we have a nice notification when we airdrop something to our phone. So if I airdrop the thing I just screen recorded, we'll drop it into the iPhone. You'll see it pop onto the iPhone and then bring us to what we actually just sent to it. So it is really nice that it's there, but it's not something I would run out personally and go buy an iPhone for. It's really great, and I can't wait to see what people use it for in the future. It's very helpful for notifications, but again, it's just an area for notifications at this point. So maybe we'll see some changes with iOS 17 that integrate this a little bit better, and maybe more apps will use it, whether it be Carrot Weather or maybe Apple's own weather app and much more. If you have any other apps you'd suggest to use with the dynamic island, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. And of course, if you'd like to get your hands on this wallpaper, I'll link it in the description like I normally do. If you haven't subscribed already though, please subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.